Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. Here we go again. Doesn't it seem like we were just here? Oh, yeah, I guess we were. Every Wednesday. But that makes it so much fun. It gives me something to look forward to as the week goes, and hopefully you look forward to it as well. Didn't take a lot of coffee because I've been drinking it already, but I got some. Got that in here. So how's your week going? You had a good week? It's kind of weird coming in after Easter, after Passover, after Ramadan, after everything, and then now we're talking about Mother's Day, and it seems like we just got done with one thing. And prom, I know a lot of you have already been promming, and it continues this weekend, and for a few more weekends yet to come. And then the weddings. You've probably been meeting with couples and making plans, and your weekends are looking pretty full going through. It's a year. 2022 is going to be a unique time. But let's go back. We're going to talk Mother's Day. And just a few hints. Remember, if you're on your phone, if you turn it sideways, you get a bigger picture. If the comments are in the way, swipe. You won't see them. Then swipe, you can get them back. Or turn it vertical, and then that puts them on the bottom. If you're on your computer, you can go full screen. Take a moment. You know, this is a collaboration. It really pulls us all together. So take a moment and introduce yourself and where you're from. If you're part of the Tulip People, add your tulip. We all love our icon. Get that in there so that we know. And then get to know each other. If you're a first timer, let us know. I want to hear what's going on in your world. Now, I'm going to be sharing tips for getting ready for Mother's Day and tips to be thinking about as you get ready for Mother's Day. But I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, because it's one of those holidays that we're already tired from. Valentine's Day, Administrative Assistance Day, Sweetest Day, whatever else, Women's Day, that's the other one, Women's Day, and there's so many that we just kind of almost get tired, and we think, oh my gosh, how can we even go a little further? And then you have Mother's Day, which is huge. And so we've got to think about, how do we take care of ourselves? What can we do to make it a little easier? In the studio with me, we have teacher Michelle. She's going to be voicing your questions and your comments, so feel free to type away. Parker is here as well. He'll be watching and shouting out to make sure that I know what's going on. Teacher Marisa is on the other side of the wall with class today, so we don't have all of us in here because school's in session. So she's on the other side of the wall. Virtually, we have Caledonia on Facebook. Hi, Callie, glad you're with us. And we have Susie on YouTube. Yay, Susie. So shout out to the team that allows this all to happen. And a shout out to you for joining us today to talk Mother's Day. I was thinking as I was getting ready, what tips would I want to share? And one of the things that I thought of is even choices of materials can make a big difference. And if you've had flower school with me, if you've been in basic or advanced, or even if you've looked in the videos in the Flower Lovers Club, you've heard me talk over and over, make sure you have at least 3 different types of foliage. I like to use a lot of different varieties. And I'd say that's one of the first tips I'll share with you, is that choose foliages wisely and a variety of different things. That way, if something doesn't come in the way you want it to, either it's late or it's not the quality you want, you can set it aside, get a credit on that, and you can still default to the other things. Some of my favorites here in the Pacific Northwest, Salal is a great long-lasting, larger leafed foliage that works very well and holds up quite well. And Huckleberry, also a local product, holds well, different growth formats, so the two together add nice contrast. Then not a local product, but one that's available very easily would be your Israeli ruscus, another one that's very, very long lasting. The leaf formation is a little different, And so putting those three together gives you nice contrast in the color as well as the leaf and the shape. Then of course you could always add in a broad, big leaf like Fatsia for a statement, or Aspidistra, because again, contrast, variation. This one happens to have a little variegation on it. That makes it extra special. And possibly a grass, bear grass or lily grass, so that you end up with different shapes, different textures and colors that all will blend well. And every single one of these is long lasting. They hold, so you can do your greening ahead of time, which I know that's a good tip, is to do all your greening even a week before. Make sure you've got a good water source, keep them cool, and then as the holiday gets closer, go back and add in your flowers. So tip 1, pick foliage wisely, look for long lasting, look for variation, and get started ahead of time. So while I get started here, what else is going on out there in the world?
Well, we have quite a few tulips logging in. So far I've seen Carl, Wayne, well, it's nice and warm, Natalie, Jim, Angie, John, Cherie, Nikki, Erica, Andrea, Ann, and Julie. And we have 11 states and 1 country represented so far. Australia.
Well, that's 2 countries then,
Well, 2,
because
sorry.
we have the United States. I want to get counted here. I love it. So it's good to see you all. Hopefully, Carl, there will be no storm, although today we get the storm. They're actually forecasting lightning and thunder and possible twister clouds. And I'm like, what? Here in Portland, Oregon? That just doesn't happen. So I was like, oh my goodness. But hopefully you won't end up hiding in the bathroom waiting for the storm to pass. I know last week you had a little bit of a flurry there. So hopefully not this week. I would like to think that you stay safe and sound. So as I start here, I'm taking and just putting foliage in my hand and clustering it. I'm not really even thinking too hard. It's basically a hand tie, but without putting the effort into thinking about a hand tie. Maybe a little bit of a weave, but mostly just clustering things in my hand, just like so. And then I could go back and add the Fatsia for just one more. So I've got the ruscus, the salal, the huckleberry, and a Fatsia. And then I would just take that and loosely bind it. Not very much. I don't want it to be locked tight, but I'm loosely binding. And now that's ready to go. I can give it a cut so that the stems are the same size and drop it into water. And it's ready for designing. Now that I've got that one done, I go back and I repeat, because you don't want to do just one. When you get started, you want to create several so that you're ready. And you can do this now while you've got time, because there's going to be a day that you don't have time, that you need to be done as opposed to just getting started. So going through, and again, just taking foliage and adding it into my hand. There we go. And I'm going to keep going on this. What else is happening in the world while I keep poking here? So we'll get as much done as possible quickly so that we can cover a lot of different tips and how to work with things getting ready for the holiday.
Well, this isn't necessarily Mother's Day, it's prom, but Lori is working on 3 proms this weekend, and so far she has orders for 79 combos.
Wow, 79 combination corsage and boutonniere. That is a lot of work. Congratulations, Lori. I know I was just talking to one of our students, and they had just loaded in the final exam into their student dashboard for their online studies, but they were calling in to let me know that they hadn't added in the corsage that they needed for the final exam because they were doing prom this weekend, and they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna make sure and do one of my prom corsages as my test corsage, save time and money, and actually make money because I'm selling it. And I thought, brilliant, we love our Tulip People, students using their talents to make money and finish their education at the same time. I mean, I was pretty impressed with that. So I know that they are busy, busy, busy. I think they had 2 proms this weekend, one last weekend and one next weekend maybe. I mean, and I'm like, how many proms can you possibly have? But how many schools are there? There's a lot of proms to be had, and getting ready ahead of time on that is vitally important too. So they were very happy because they had no proms on Mother's Day weekend, which is always a challenge because when you're trying to do prom and Mother's Day, oh, you're a glutton for punishment. Parker, what have you got going on?
Well, I just have my YouTube tulips to say hi to. I saw Kirsty, Roxy, Jenny, Debbie, Olga, Kyle, and Dorothy, then Katie, Maria, Raphael, Sabine, Carla, Angelica, Kaylee, and Isabel showed up too.
Welcome. I'm glad you're all here. Now, if you're on YouTube, they have a little icon right underneath the video, and I think you have to click something to even see it if you're watching the comments and such. You of my YouTube peoples, if you type in there what they have to do, because I can't tell you off the top of my head. But anyway, if you can find that thumb icon and click it, it helps the algorithms and it lets more people know we're live, and so that of course makes me happy. So if you're on YouTube, if you will find that thumb and click that icon, I'd love you forever. If you're on Facebook, you can like, that makes us happy, and you can share. So if there's someone that you know is getting ready for Mother's Day or should be getting ready for Mother's Day, if you would tag them, share this out to a group that you're a member of, give us a like, but spread the word. Help us break those algorithms so that we get out there and distributed so that more people can get ready for the holiday and have it all set. Michelle, what's going on?
So Karen has a question. You just did the bundle of greenery, and she says, since that isn't woven or spiraled, would you need to keep it bound when in the vase, or would it just work placed loosely?
It could go either way. Mother's Day, I would leave it bound because you need a little more security because you're dealing with such volume and such a quick time that you don't want to risk having things shift. So yes, you could undo it and just set it in the vase and you'd probably be fine. But my concern is with it being Mother's Day and trying to get so much delivered in such a short amount of time that it might backfire on you. And so for that reason, I would bind it like that, but I bound it very loosely so that I can still get more stems in and I don't have to wrestle with it. I just have it loosely bound. Now this time I'm weaving a little more, so it may not need to be bound. So again, a judgment call, and every person is probably going to have a little different opinion as to how to do that. So that would be something you'll just have to experiment with and see what works best for you. Now some of these leaves are so large, I'm going to strip it down a bit because I don't want quite so much aspidistra, but I do like that movement and the larger leaf in there, but just not quite so large. So I'm just stripping a little tiny bit. There we go. Maybe one more. And this should look pretty familiar. If you've been to basic floral design, you know one of the very first things we do is teach you how to green using a central binding point if you've studied online. You saw how to green using a central binding point, and that's all I'm doing is I'm weaving through a central point, locking everything together. I can still go back and add a fatsia if I want to, creating almost a collar effect on here. Now this time, since I did weave it a little more, I'm not going to bind it. I'm just going to place it. So I've been weaving. I still would cut the stems because you want everything to be about the same length so that they're down into the water. And then my fascia are shorter, so I'm reaching in and giving them a clip so that they still will drink well. And then I can set that into a larger vessel. Okay, so I'm doing the same technique, smaller and larger, but I purposely plan these particular containers because tip number 2, or 3 or 4, we've had lots of tips I guess, but this was tip number 2 on my list, is to think about the deliverability of your containers and similarities. If they have a similar footprint, so if the size is roughly the same at the base, it's easier to box them and deliver them because they all can go in the same type of packaging. Now some are taller, but the base is about the same. And they're not identical. You can see I've got some variation here, but they would all pretty much fit in the same type of boxing system. That one's about the same. This one, it's even bigger, but the footprint is the same. So it just makes it easier as you're working to plan ahead on the peripheral, the box, the packaging, the how to put it into the vehicle, how are you going to move it around. This is bigger, but it's the same footprint. And so thinking about the flexibility, your containers, how they can mix and match, makes your life easier. The other thing that I did here that you may have noticed is there's no clear glass. Clear glass is on trend. I love clear glass too. But if you have floaters in the water, a leaf that gets down in there, it automatically looks bad. Here, you don't know if I have a floater in the water. It's hidden. So no one will ever know that. It makes it just a little easier to make it look professional. The other thing that I find is when it is a vessel that has some color to it, that actually adds some value to the design because it has visual impact. So if I have this silvery white, you're going to notice that. If I have this hot pink, you're going to notice that. So it enhances the value of the arrangement just through choice of containers. So thinking about things like that, the silly little things, and I guess it's not really silly, but the logical little things that can make your life easier simply by choices of what vessels you use. Michelle, what's that?
Question on delivery. So those aren't clear glass, but they're still breakable. Do you have any delivery tips?
Delivery is challenging, and yes, every single one of these things are breakable, and if it can, it will, as you know. There are different delivery systems out there. Personally, I have always been a fan of boxing them, and you can get just a standard florist box that you staple together, set it in, and it's protected from breakage. Plus, when you've got the box and you put some tissue, it makes it look bigger, more impressive. If you have to deal with weather issues, if it's freezing, you can actually then completely wrap it. If it's not weather issues, I oftentimes don't completely wrap it. It sort of depends on the situation. But I like to box and tissue just to protect. And then when I put them into the vehicle, you can either use a delivery system or use sandbags or cement blocks. There's lots of different ways you can adjust that as well. But I tend to not deliver just the arrangement, especially on a holiday, because if you end up having to leave it with a neighbor, or if you have to leave it on a porch, or if you have to move it around much, that box can really be helpful. So that would be my hint there as far as delivery. I would definitely package it to keep it safe. Yeah. Now, once you've got your basics in place, then you can start thinking about the flowering. And when I got things ready to flower, one of the things that I think helps as far as profitability and designability is when you are planning your offerings and buying your flowers, pick a color palette and stick with it. So I worked with mostly pinks, and then I just enhanced with a bit of blue and purple, but I kept it all in that analogous palette so that it can all mix and match and it can all go together, and I don't have to worry about, oh, this one doesn't match that one. So I did not bring in yellow things. Doesn't mean I don't like yellow. It just means that all of a sudden I have to make some more conscious decisions as to, ooh, can I use this yellow item? What do I need to do? And so all of a sudden it doesn't work as easily. So if I'm selling a mixed analogous palette of pinks to purples, everything that I have in the store can coordinate. And I don't have to worry, did I pick the right flowers? And especially if you have new designers on staff or just some temporary assistant help, if they can know that no matter what they go and grab and design with, that it's going to be fine, it'll be pretty, and all they have to do is pick any single flower and it will coordinate and be gorgeous. They only have to think about then the pricing, which is a big deal, but at least they don't have to worry about, will this match? Does it go together? Should I pick something else? They don't have to think about that. They can just start gathering anything that they see that's for sale and add it into the arrangement and know that, that's a good choice. That really works in there. It's pretty and it coordinates and it's going to have a happy customer. The other thing that I find is that Mother's Day is oftentimes, I don't want to say less sophisticated. It's people that don't buy as many flowers. You know, they might be a customer that only buys twice a year, Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, that's it. Or they may not even buy Valentine's, they may only buy Mother's Day. And so that one-time shopper generally is not as brave and daring with colors and variety. And so if you're a little bit more safe, which monochromatic and analogous are generally safe, then they are more comfortable with the flowers that they get. So it's just a way to help that customer have a great experience in buying flowers from you, because they don't have to worry, ooh, does that yellow flower fit there? And you might know that, oh, that yellow is perfect with that blue. Isn't that stunning? But they're like, wow, I'm not sure. Does that match? Don't make them have to think that way. Make it as easy as possible by just having flowers that do match. So I'm going to put in some flowers that match while you guys tell me what else is going on out there.
Well, Roxy had a good tip. She bought a bunch of towels from the dollar store, and she uses those to help her when she's packing her van. She can just run a load of laundry and reuse them.
That's great, because it traps the water and you're not throwing things away, because you can wash it and reuse it and wash it and reuse it. Brilliant move, Roxy. That's a great idea. So there you go. A tip from a fellow tulip. Hit the dollar store, find towels and use those as you're packaging your things to keep your vehicle from having sopping wet water all over everything. Oh my gosh, we've all had those vehicles that stink because of moldy flower water. Oh my gosh. How do you know if you're a florist? And it's if you have debris in the car and wet floorboards. So, yeah. What else is happening?
Well, they're loving the idea of the color coordinated offerings of flowers and limiting the offerings. That was Rick's comment. He said it just takes the thinking right out of the process.
Doesn't that sound funny that we don't want to think? But that's exactly what you have to think like. We just don't think. But you want to be on automatic pilot so that you don't have to worry and fuss. Instead, you just design, and the limiting the choices, you would think that that would make the customer less happy because they don't have as much to choose from, but the reality is it makes them happier because they're not overwhelmed. Again, it's a less frequent shopper many times, and so if there's too many choices, it just makes them almost give up. And you know, we've all been there. We go in and we look at something and it's like, how do you even decide? A good example of that would be the Cheesecake Factory. That menu, I'm tired before I even get halfway through, and I finally give up and I'm like, you know what, I'll have what you're having. Because I want to sit and talk and have fun with my friends. I don't want to sit there and read a menu for an hour, and by the time I get to the end, I can't remember what was at the front, and it actually spoils the experience for me. I know that sounds kind of like, really? You don't want to go to the Cheesecake Factory? Like, no, I don't. I want fewer choices. I want to be able to have a choice, but that's already been curated for me so that everything that I look at is great, and it's just enough to give me a few choices, but not so much that I'm overwhelmed. So that's the gift that you're giving your customer, is to curate their choices before you even begin. Now, I'm doing this one all the way around simply because no one has to remember where the front is. That helps. Parker, what you got?
I have a good question regarding choices and decision. Melanie asks, how do you handle customers that want to Frankenstein your arrangements to make a personalized arrangement? Some from this design and from that design. And how do you still make an opportunity out of it?
Ah, that's an interesting way of putting it, Frankenstein it. Yes, you will have that customer that comes in and wants totally unique, one of a kind, a little of this and a little of that and a little of this. And all of a sudden you've got a very, very, very expensive situation because you can only sell so many things in any given time. And if this customer is monopolizing you and then also destroying this arrangement and destroying that arrangement and destroying this arrangement to make one littler different arrangement, all of a sudden you lost that potential. So I would just say no, and that's hard to say. I'm sorry, these flowers are already done. This is something we could do a custom. Our custom work starts at $475. Would you like to talk to a designer about that? And I may be a little facetious there, but basically if they want that one-of-a-kind hands-on service, they need to pay for it. And so these are the offerings that we have. If you'd like a custom design, I can have a designer work with you. That begins at $495. All of a sudden this one at 75 looks really good, and that might be the better way to handle it. Or if they really wanted to, you say, you know what, you're welcome to buy these 3 and take them home and rearrange them to your satisfaction and make 3 sales, and they're not going to do that. But it's going to be a dance of how do you do it without totally offending them, because that's a tricky thing. Yeah. Any other hints out there how tulips, how you would have handled that? Because that's a tough call.
It's not a new tip or hint, but they had an interesting analogy on Facebook. It's just what restaurants do for Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. They limit the menu offering. Yeah, prefix menu.
That is so true. I can remember, I don't remember which holiday it was. I want to say maybe Christmas Eve, but it was a holiday. And David and I had wanted to go to this one restaurant for a long time, and we hadn't been, and we finally said, you know what, we are doing it. We are just going to go, and we are going to really enjoy this. And we got there, and the menu that we had seen, of course, was not the menu they were offering, because again, it was a holiday and they were limited on what they could physically possibly do. And as a customer, I was disappointed at first, but then once I settled in with it and I realized they had curated it to be the best possible situation for me, things that they knew that they could prepare well, and they explained that, and I was okay with it. It did have a momentary lapse where I was not a happy camper, but then when I realized how realistic it was, it actually made sense, because then I knew that whatever I got was going to be up to snuff and what they could do really, really well. And I think as florists, sometimes we're trained to say yes to everything. And sometimes it's better to say no and protect the client so that they don't get something that's going to be a disadvantage and actually make them less happy. So, yeah.
I have a question. Sort of, well, I guess it's my own question, inspired by James, who pointed out that they can be sometimes busier on Mother's Day than Valentine's Day. And I remember that from the restaurant industry as well. How do you think that, how does it differ dealing with maybe husbands or spouses or partners buying flowers on Valentine's Day versus children and partners and fathers and everything getting Mother's Day flowers? It seems like there's a lot more potential clients, I guess.
And that's an excellent observation. Mother's Day oftentimes is bigger than Valentine's. Valentine's, I think, is a harder holiday because it's all in one day, whereas Mother's Day, although it's bigger, is spread out over the week and into the weekend, so it gives you a little more time to work with. It's also, though, one of the most angst-driven holidays, because oftentimes you send flowers to mom because you can't be there. Maybe you're out of town, maybe you've got little children, maybe you've got 4 moms and you can't get to every place all at the same time. So you do flowers to all the moms, and you think, oh my gosh, I spent a bucket of money and I'm very happy I did this for you, but mom gets it. And mom is disappointed because they didn't care if they got flowers, they wanted to see you. And so then, even though the flowers are gorgeous, they're not you. And so many times florists get complaints that have nothing to do with the flowers, but it's simply the dynamics of the fact that it's not a personal visit, which makes it really hard. So yeah, Mother's Day is one of those holidays that just has quite a bit of emotional baggage. And the goal for a florist is to try to eliminate as much of that baggage so that you have happy customers, but it can be challenging. Let's talk peonies. Mother's Day and peonies, sometimes the season starts perfectly for you. Other times you're still having to deal with forced peonies and imported peonies because this bloom is late, but yet everybody loves a peony. And I don't know if you've looked at price lists recently, but peonies are not necessarily an inexpensive bloom. They can be quite costly. Same with the ranunculus that I stuck in there, because those are great, big, huge, fabulous ranunculus. So how do you deal with somebody who wants peonies and fabulous ranunculus, but they don't have the budget for that? And that's where having a mixed arrangement can help, because you can do it with one peony. And they still get a peony, but there's only one. And that way you can adjust to the pricing. And you can see this was my pre-greened, and I just dropped things in quick and easy and out the door. This one has 5 stems. Now they're 5 premium stems, 2 hydrangea, 2 of the ranunculus, and 1 peony. But it's already full and pretty without a lot of effort. And so it again allows a little bit more room for profitability. The flexibility of 5 blooms looking fabulous makes it easy. I can use any 5 blooms, that doesn't matter, but it is a very flexible design that works out great. You can then take, another one. You don't have to do the same thing. Maybe this one, you want something a little more exotic. Maybe a protea. Setting that down in. Maybe 2 of them so that it really looks exotic and fabulous. So now these arrangements don't look anything alike, but yet they're started from the same base, which makes it easy for you as a designer to work with it. Maybe add in a little bit of leptospermum, which again makes this totally different than this guy. There's no similarities, so you don't have somebody saying, oh, well, theirs looks just like this one. Well, I don't want it to look the same. I want mine to be unique. I want it to be a one-of-a-kind, handmade work of art. And you're like, yes, for $19.95, I can give you a one-of-a-kind, handmade work of art. Yes, let me do that right now. But that's something that starts being feasible if you plan ahead like this. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be inexpensive, but it means there's more opportunity for profitability just simply by the organization. I'll start poking some things here. You guys tell me what else is happening.
So there's some chatter about those gorgeous lavender roses in the arrangement with the blue hydrangeas. If I remember correctly, they are not garden roses, is that right?
That is correct. They are not a garden rose, and they are called, and of course I can't remember the name. Oh, it was not on that invoice, I don't think. It's shaped like hearts, but it is not hearts. But it is shaped like a heart with that big ruffle and multiple petals, and it is a standard rose. It's not a garden rose. And I will have to look up the name because I know that I had it. You know what, Parker, if you would ask Marisa, she may still have it because it was one that was left over from class. So she may even remember the name, or the class might remember the name.
It's Queen something?
Might be Queen something. Yeah, that's like, I don't know, what was that? But it is a beautiful rose, and it's a very long-lasting rose. I've been impressed with it. This has just been sitting at room temperature all since Monday, I guess. So 3 days at room temperature, and they're blooming out beautifully, but they're still very firm. They're not starting to shatter or go limp at all. So I think they're going to have quite a few days on them.
She's gonna check it out.
She's checking it, okay.
This is something cool I didn't know. Dennis pointed out that in Mexico, Mother's Day is on May 10th, and so a lot of the folks in the Southwest have an even longer kind of holiday for Mother's Day.
Oh.
Maybe that's something people could offer.
You know, that's the thing around the world. Mother's Day does vary as to when it is. It's not always the same for everywhere. So that would be a question for you, because here I am chattering on about Mother's Day here in the United States. When is your Mother's Day? Because you're all in different places. So what's the story? That would be an interesting question.
So Marcel had a question talking about the pre-greening again. She's wondering if it works as well for foam designs as well as foam free.
It does, and that's another tip that I had for today, and that is I went foam free. I also went floral netting free. I have no mechanics other than the foliages and flowers themselves and weaving them together. So that eliminates a lot of the hard good cost and eliminates prep. There's no taped grid, that takes time. There's no foam, that takes cost, and some people are not liking to use foam. There's no armature, there's no floral netting. It truly is just the foliage and flowers supporting themselves. And so it reduces my labor and it reduces my costs, which leads to affordability as I'm making things out for the customer. If you are using foam, the benefit is you don't have as much water to slosh around because it's embedded in the foam. And yes, you can pre-green a week ahead with foam. Just make sure that it's got a good water reservoir and that you keep it wet. And then you can add your flowers in there as well to get them out the door. It gives you the stability of holding everything exactly where you want it. You don't have to be quite as careful, but yeah, you can certainly do that. Now you can see here with the 3, did we get it? Do we know the answer?
Well, Michelle, you had the label out here for a while. It was called Queen something, right?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to come up
That's
with.
it?
Queen something.
Oh,
I'll do a little search, yeah.
I remember Queens. I looked on Floral Abundance.
So you got it too. I love it. Okay, that's because we always save the labels, but then since we were done, we didn't save the label anymore, and so now we're back to it's a queen something. So now I've done 3 different arrangements, all of them done in the round style so that I don't have to worry about where is the front. That just makes it easy. They all 3 could be different price points because that gives me the flexibility, but they all 3 have the same mechanics and the same footprint, which makes it easy for packaging and delivery. Now, I'm going to ask you once again, if you have the opportunity on YouTube, click the thumb icon so that our algorithms go well. If you're on Facebook, if you'll share, you'll like, spread the word, help us get that out there. Now, if you are thinking about doing these types of things, go back to your lessons. Basic design, it's the round arrangement, central binding point. That's all I've done here, just switched out. So go back to your lessons, look at that. If you are in the Flower Lovers Club, if you go to the Style Library, you'll find some videos that would be similar to this, and that way you can get sort of a refresher to go further. If you're looking for more, Susie has actually put together an entire playlist about designing for the spring holidays and Mother's Day and such. So you can go to YouTube and get the playlist. Subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get announced whenever we have a new playlist, because I have a brand new one that I'm bringing out. I think it's either next week or 2 weeks. There's one that's still private that we haven't shared yet that I will be opening up because it's such a beautiful one. So if you've not done that, please do. So my key tips was to think about a standard color palette. Think about the speed of design, things that you can do ahead of time, things that you can prepare for. Think about the footprint for deliverability, and then price flexibility. And that's, I guess, the key word for Mother's Day, especially this year because of supply chain disruption and such, flexibility is so vitally important. So all of these give you that flexibility. But now I wanted to show you another one, because sometimes you have a customer that doesn't want flexibility. They don't want something that's easy. They want something totally unique. And so let's go there. While I'm pulling things, Michelle Parker, go for it.
Two things. One, they asked if you could put the pink mink protea design to the center so they can get a good look at that one.
No.
That's what I told them. And the rose is Queen's Crown, and it is actually a garden rose.
Really? I didn't think it was a garden rose. How fascinating. So Queen's Crown, it was packed with the non-garden roses. So of course now I'm wondering what I paid for that Queen's Crown, but you know what? It was worth it. It's so pretty. But I'll have to take a look at that, you know? Anyway, a little bit of curly willow in this one just because it goes with the materials that I chose to work with and gives it a little more rustic look, and it pulls the color from the container up. It needs a little more fluffing, but we'll do that fluffing and then get a good picture of it. We'll post it on the Tulip People group tomorrow. All of these will be posted, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll start putting them into the rest of our places. You'll find it on Pinterest, you'll find it on YouTube, you'll find it on Facebook, and you'll find it on Instagram. But that'll start on Friday. Thursday, it goes to the Tulip People private group first so that you guys get it. So there's kind of a good picture of that, and then we'll get it fluffed and ready to go. So this one had the knife acacia, leptospermum, spray rose, the foliages, and then the protea. So it gives it a little different look for Mother's Day, but still sticking with that same pinkish palette so that everything can be utilized. Okay.
Leanne, how early did you say you could green foam?
I would say a week. Now, if you have good refrigeration, you could do a little longer, but I would say a week for most things. Okay. When somebody is looking for something totally unique, totally special, it needs to be more expensive. You can't do totally one-of-a-kind unique items for a low price. It just isn't workable. So if it's going to be expensive, it also has to be pretty special. And so many times I'll find cool containers, which this is a tea service, that make up wonderfully with flowers. Michelle?
Dennis said that his company is pushing cut and drop bouquet arrangements. So using a pre-made bouquet as the basis for base designs.
You know, that is something that has worked out really well for a lot of people, is buying pre-made mixed foliage bouquets. You just cut it and drop it in. And then sometimes we're actually buying entire pre-made bouquets that you cut, drop in, and then you just enhance and personalize. And with the way that the world is going and labor issues and such, I think it's a great solution. We poo-pooed pre-made items for so many years, but the reality is pre-made is a really good thing. It allows you to do some things that you maybe wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I think that's probably a brilliant idea. So now I've added water. I already put water in the teapot. Now I added it into the cups. Depending on their budget, you could leave the teacups empty and just put flowers in the teapot. You could leave the teapot as is and just put flowers in the cup. Now, deliverability on this one's tricky because this is a very shallow container. That water is going to go all over. So point to no. So again, when you do things like this, you have to think about it's not necessarily the most practical item, but if you have that very favorite customer that money is no object, it's kind of a good thing to do. Now you'll notice as I was working, I don't know if you could tell, but I was saving my leftover bits, and that's my next tip. when it comes to Mother's Day, flowers are expensive. Supply and demand. You want to be able to sell every little bit of what you bought. So as you're designing, do your big things first, and then use the little leftovers, and then the really little leftovers go into even smaller things so that everything gets used. Even the smallest little sprig gets sold so that you're making money. So I did a quick grab of some leftover things that we had from class, and these were just bits that could easily end up in the garbage because they were the leftover little things. They weren't the pretty, great, big stuff. This was some of it too, where it's just a single Lysianthus bloom that's short, but it's perfect in here. Another one that can be perfect. And then the buds, making sure to use them so that they get enjoyed rather than thrown away.
Dennis said that tea set would be perfect with little arrangements in the cups and then bare grass coming out of the spout of the teapot.
Wouldn't that be fun? Like it's pouring out? How cool is that? Yes, I agree. This is a scabiosa, which is actually almost on the end of its life. It's not a new scabiosa. It has a sleeve on it that I'm trying to get off. There we go. But since it's so close to the end of its life, I'm going to use it right down low, because then even as it starts to fade, it's going to look beautiful because the cup itself is going to hold it up and it's not going to relax to a dead stage, which makes it so beautiful. So, so pretty. A little bit of snowberry. I'm just finding a spot to set that in. And one more bit of snowberry.
Well, yeah, Janet said check out thrift stores for some used vintage tea sets.
Tea sets, cups, all of that. Yeah, the vintage stores and resale stores. And you're being eco-conscious. Reuse, recycle, and vintage is on trend. That's very, very good idea. Other stories and songs out there? Things going on?
Well, Joy said she likes to keep small vases or little cubes at her workstation and creates designs with her snibbles as she goes through the day.
Very, very great idea, because you can always throw it away later if you don't use it. But if you don't save it, you don't even have the choice of using it. And so many times you need just that little single bloom. And so if you have a small vessel for bits that you then incorporate in, that's like found money. That's so, so cost effective. Definitely a wiser choice than just throwing it away and not getting any value from it. And you can see this is coming together looking so fabulous of just the leftover bits. Maybe one more of the dying scabiosa. That sounds really weird, the dying scabiosa, but that's what it is. There we go, right down in there.
It looks great on camera.
Does it work okay?
Yes, it's gorgeous.
Good. Then I win, yay! Then this was just a stem of the eyelash clematis that was left over and gives a little bit of texture and a surprise, because they're like, what is that? People haven't seen it necessarily. So again, if it's your special client that's willing to spend more money for things that are unique, having the time to do this. Now, if you're going to do this type of thing for Mother's Day, you need to do it early. So contact those special clients that you know would be willing to pay the higher price for a unique item and suggest that they deliver it early in the week so that mom gets it and enjoys it clear through. And you're not trying to do it on that Friday, Saturday, when all of a sudden it's crazy busy to get everything out the door, because that's when there will be a problem. But if you were to deliver this on Monday before, letting mom know that she was loved and got flowers first before any of her other friends, oh my gosh, she's the most spectacular mom ever. And she gets bragging rights because she got flowers first. And her kids planned ahead. They didn't wait till the last minute. And it just makes everybody win because you get that big order and you get it out the door while you can handle a big order. So it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah.
Dan, could you explain when you talked about that like little sheath on the scabiosa? What that is, if people haven't seen that before?
Yeah, that's like
I think the other one has one on it.
Yeah, you maybe are familiar with Gerber straws, and it's like a fat straw, like a straw from bubble tea, and you just slide it up the stem of a Gerber. Well, this actually is a sheath, and it's slit so that it goes on, and then it just encases the stem. So it's a wrapping with a sleeve, basically. And it goes around the stem, supporting it so that this thing stays upright, because this particular scabiosa with this huge head, so many different petals, the head is just so heavy that it wouldn't be able to support itself, and it would end up drooping, and it wouldn't be strong enough, and so then it would die. Whereas this straw just holds it in place so that it's upright and protects it. So you can see these are very old. They've been with us for quite some time, but they're still beautiful because they've been drinking and they've been supported by that straw. Now I've taken the straw off because now I'm using it so short that it's not necessary. But if it was used in a taller arrangement, like one of these, I would definitely leave the straw on so that it stayed protected and I didn't have to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and add in this last little bit of eyelash clematis because there's no sense not using it since I saved it. And then I've got a little hole over here that still needs another bloom. So I'll add one more little lisianthus over there. There we go. Then I can turn this so you can see it from all sides. And you can see it looks great from there. Okay. Looks pretty on that side. So again, where's the front, where's the back? It doesn't matter. Which, on holidays especially, I try to do things so that they are all-sided, so that no one has to feel bad if they turned it backwards, because there is no back. It's all the same. And as far as where did you learn to do something like this? Think it back. Again, basic floral design, advanced floral design, the Flower Lovers Club. It's a central binding point. Everything in a radial format, just placed in, not a single bit of foliage. So it's a little more costly because there's nothing that is just filler. These are all premium blooms, premium everything. If you wanted to say the clematis is used sort of like a filler, but it's not a filler item. It's definitely a costing item, like a bloom of sorts. I could go back and add a bit of wax flower. Got a tiny bit there, maybe a tiny bit over here. But again, just keeping it focused on the blooms and not adding the oddity things, because I want to really focus on the materials at hand. Now, you can see there's not a whole lot left because as I worked, I just stuck with the plan of everything coordinates with everything else. so that no matter what I picked up as I was working, I could be assured that it would match and that I wouldn't have to go, oh shoot, I have this yellow bloom left over. Where do I put this yellow bloom? But yet they all look a little different, so that when someone comes into the store to buy, they don't feel like, oh, well, everybody's getting the exact same thing for Mother's Day. They all look identical, because they don't. But the mechanics are identical. The footprint is identical. The convenience and flexibility is identical. And then when I'm done, the leftovers, not very much. But even the leftovers could all still coordinate and be put into yet another arrangement. If I wanted to take and do one last, that would all fit in there and be perfect. That is how you have a profitable, happy, wonderful Mother's Day. If you think of other tips, type them in. Next week we'll be back. Mother's Day is not next week. Next week we're going to be talking about preparation for AIFD one last time. But then 2 weeks we'll be back to Mother's Day again. So we're just going to flip back and forth. But for now, get out there and get prepared for a fabulous, profitable Mother's Day. Because I can't wait to hear how it went and about all your successes and the great ideas you came up with. So get out there and do something you love.